Welcome to Eye on America. I'm Michelle Miller. Today we look at a series of innovations in tech and science that are inspiring people and saving lives. In Massachusetts, we see how doctors are using AI to improve the speed and accuracy of medical care. And in California, we take you inside the magical world of a Disney Imagineer who brings movie magic to life, including the lightsaber. But we begin in North Carolina, where first responders are turning to drones for a surprising purpose. Manuel Bojorquez shows us how the latest trend for water rescues comes from the sky.
Last month, two young paddleboarders found themselves stranded in the ocean. Strong winds and currents pushed them 2,000 feet from the shore of Oak Island, North Carolina. But rescuers had eyes on them the whole time, thanks to the deployment of a drone. Within a few minutes, they were safely aboard a rescue boat. The fire department here in Oak Island is one of a few in the country using this kind of technology for ocean rescue. Sean Barry is a firefighter turned drone pilot.
So this drone is capable of flying in all types of weather and environments.
It's equipped with a camera that can switch between modes, including infrared, to spot people in distress. Responders can communicate instructions through a speaker, and just as important is its ability to carry life-preserving equipment.
This is triggered by a CO2 cartridge and has a triggering device that's activated by the intrusion of water. And as soon as it's activated, it inflates.
Here's a real-life example. After a 911 call from shore, the drone went up and spotted the swimmer in distress. You can see the moment one cartridge was released and then another, giving him two floating tubes while help arrived. Like many coastal communities, the population here in Oak Island can balloon from around 10,000 to 50,000 during the summer tourist season. And riptides, columns of water rushing out to sea and hard to detect on the surface, can happen at any time.
Every year, there are about 100 deaths due to rip currents along U.S. beaches. It's estimated more than 80% of beach rescues involve rip currents.
Lee Price is Oak Island's fire chief.
You think people underestimate the force of a rip current?
They do. People are like, oh, I'm a good swimmer. I'm going to go out there, and then they get in trouble.
For Chief Price, the benefit isn't just a much faster response time, but also not putting rescuers in harm's way when through the camera and speaker they can determine when someone isn't in distress.
Why aren't more jurisdictions, you think, adopting something like this right away?
Cost, I don't know, is necessarily a factor because the cost isn't tremendous. But having somebody trained and able to operate and perform that capability, it's like anything. As technology advances, it takes a little bit for everybody to catch up and get used to it.
The drone's hovering directly over our victim.
Sean Barry is improving both his piloting skills and the drone's capabilities.
Drop.
In this demonstration, he showed us how it can bring a safety rope to a swimmer while rescuers prepare to pull the person to shore.
The speed and accuracy that this gives you.
Rapid deployment, speed, accuracy, and safety overall.
It's an eye in the sky and a potential lifesaver in the water.
We stay above ground to look at an innovative way one California startup is aiming to reverse the Earth's rising temperatures. CBS News Bay Area's Ann Makovic gets a look at how weather balloons could aid in the fight against climate change.
High up in the hills near Silicon Valley, a controversial mission involving a weather balloon will soon take flight.
Go ahead and start it slowly.
What's getting pumped inside the expanding globe?
Turn it up a bit more, please.
Two gases, sulfur dioxide and helium.
3, 2, 1.
The helium will carry this balloon more than 12 miles above the surface of the Earth into the stratosphere. Once there, the balloon bursts, releasing the sulfur dioxide. The belief is that the gas turns into an aerosol, which will bounce the sunlight back into space, cooling the planet.
That gas reacts with other things to form clouds that reflect a little bit of sunlight back into space before it can warm Earth.
The strategy seeks to temporarily cool the planet as human activities continue to warm it.
Even if we magically can stop burning fossil fuels tomorrow and somehow have some other magical energy to replace it, there will still be warming.
Since 2022, Luke Eisman and Andrew Song from the startup Make Sunsets have launched more than 80 balloons. The concept behind the method is based on the planet cooling effects of volcanic eruptions. A good example is the massive eruption of Mount Pinatubo in 1991. It injected 15 million tons of sulfur dioxide aerosols into the stratosphere, dropping temperatures around the world.
Pinatubo actually cooled the Earth by about 0.3 of a degree Celsius or half a degree Fahrenheit for several years.
Dr. William Collins is with Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory and a top expert on aerosols and climate change science.
So we know these aerosols can cool the climate. And the question that people are now asking is, could we do that artificially?
Larger entities around the world are also looking into using this technology.
We're opposed to deployment at this stage.
Lisa Dilling is an associate chief scientist with the Environmental Defense Fund. The nonprofit is financing scientific research into artificial cooling technologies. The goal is to identify and better understand any unknown risks or side effects.
We feel we need to understand a lot more about this before we can even know if it's even a viable technology.
The team is willing to share its data with scientists, but not willing to stop the launches.
We can't let concern about impacts be an excuse for inaction, or we end up with more intense versions of all of the problems that we already have.
Coming up, we take a look at how AI is being used in medicine to save lives. This is Eye on America. Welcome back. Scientists say artificial intelligence is streamlining medicine. AI is already being used to diagnose rare illnesses, develop new prescription drugs, and find alternate treatment options. Brooke Silva Braga learns how AI advancements could make medicine more accurate and improve patients' lives.
In some ways, this is how new drugs have been discovered for decades, creating compounds, then seeing if they fight disease. But that painstaking, almost artisanal process is starting to look very different.
When I was in school, I used to have to do that. Now we've got a robot that does it. Yeah.
So these youngsters don't know how good they have it with their thumb and forefinger.
Easy street.
Automating the lab, though important, is the least of it. Don Bergstrom, the president of research and development at Relay Therapeutics, says a revolution in drug discovery could cure cancer in the next 50 years by bringing new approaches to once impossible problems.
The number of potential chemicals that could be a drug is larger than the number of stars in the universe.
Really?
Traditionally, in the lab, you'd have a collection in a freezer of 100,000 different chemicals. And over the course of weeks, you would take each one of those chemicals and put it with a protein.
Okay.
Computationally, overnight, we can look at not at 100,000 compounds, but at 1 trillion compounds.
Then, after the computer has virtually screened those trillion, just a few hundred of the most promising get physically tested.
These are essentially very, very sensitive scales.
A key part of that selection process is using new computing methods to better understand the proteins they're targeting.
We just want to turn off this one, not turn off that one over there on the left.
Okay, but they look basically
the same, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
By learning the difference in the movement of extremely similar proteins, Relay says they can now target the ones causing disease without hurting healthy tissue and causing side effects.
But this protein moves more slowly than this protein does.
Right. So you're able to put something in that'll fit there, but won't there.
Exactly, because they're just moving too fast here.
They discovered that I had a gene this medicine was able to turn off.
Marcia Merton is part of a small clinical trial testing one of Relay's first drugs. It targets a common gene mutation in tumors like her metastatic breast cancer. Current treatments don't work for long because they quickly cause severe side effects. But under the care of Dr. Andreas Vakaris at Mass General Hospital,
you look good now.
Merton has stayed on Relay's experimental drug for 1.5 years.
So the little side effects that I am having, I balance out with the big effects that I'm still living my life and I'm working and I'm traveling and I'm spending time with my beautiful family.
Within 5 years, you will see a great part of the drug development pipeline massively accelerated.
Harvard's Isaac Kohane is both a medical doctor and PhD in computer science. He says technical innovations like drug discovery are just half of AI's potential in medicine. It could also totally change how patients interact with doctors. How might that work? He offered the early example of a family from Michigan.
Here is a mother whose child was fine, but now is having trouble walking, is then having trouble chewing, and then having intractable headaches. For 3 years, she goes from doctor to doctor to doctor. They get all the tests you can imagine. She takes all the text from those studies, cuts and pastes it into GPT-4, and says, "What's wrong with my child?"
The chatbot spit back a suggestion: tethered cord syndrome.
And so she goes to a neurosurgeon. Is this tethered cord syndrome? The surgeon looks at the MRIs and says, yeah. They do the surgery and the kid's fine.
Had doctors not thought of that before?
No. And this diagnosis is actually not that sophisticated a diagnosis.
So it's both an endorsement of the AI and an indictment of the medical community as it is.
And in fact, right now, that's my primary thesis about where we are right now. We are at a point where medicine is stumbling, killing patients by the thousands every year through misdiagnoses and medical errors.
The answer, according to Kohane, are healthcare outsiders like computer scientist Pranav Rajbukhar.
Yeah, I mean, we're at an inflection point.
Who joined Kohane at Harvard. His earlier work helped prove computers could read X-rays as well as humans. In limited ways, AI is now helping doctors read some scans, but Rajbukhar gave us a first look at something grander.
Let's jump into that.
An experimental system called MedVersa.
Circle the enlarged heart.
Instead of a series of one-trick pony algorithms,
wouldn't it be cool if the same model could segment out the pancreas?
MedVersa can understand and diagnose.
And we're going to generate a prediction here.
A wide range of issues.
So it says the main diagnosis is melanoma.
He says the model will be good enough to seek regulatory approval in about 2 years.
We're at a point at which these technologies are going to work, and it's a matter of when, not a matter of if.
The if, he says, is whether doctors will embrace them. Many so far have not. The impact on patients' health and doctors' employment remain uncertain. But Kohane envisions a new kind of doctor, a new kind of medicine.
We just don't have enough of the right people with enough of the right time.
Combining the expertise of every specialist into an AI any doctor or even patient can freely access. At least that's his hope for the medical community.
If we don't take leadership in how AI is used in medicine, others will do it for us. And these others may not have the best interests of society or our patients. What if this gets optimized for the insurance companies? What if it gets optimized for a particular set of drugs? We have, as a society, to start asking for super transparency.
If AI companies aren't transparent, Kohane says governments should step in. But he's convinced massive change is coming to medicine.
The use of AI is going to be problematic, but far better than what we currently have.
Ahead, we meet a lifelong inventor and Disney Imagineer with a boundless sense of wonder and over 100 patents to his name. That story is next. We close our show spotlighting the mastermind who creates some of Disney's most magical moments in real life. Lanny Smoot is the first Disney inventor since Walt himself to be inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame. Skylar Henry talks with the groundbreaking Imagineer about receiving this incredible honor and gets a peek at his latest creation.
There's no mistaking that signature sound and glow. An icon of science fiction.
This is my lab.
That Jedi lightsaber brought into the real world by Disney's research and development team in Glendale, California.
How long did it take to come up with this?
It was a few tries.
Yeah?
A few early models. And the key is to have a uniform blade, very bright, and full retraction into the hilt. And those were the challenges with something like this.
Lead inventor Lanny Smoot loves a challenge, dreaming up ideas at Disney Imagineering for the last 25 years.
Bridge the gap for me, if you will, between storytelling and invention.
Sometimes you'll have an invention that inspires a story, right? Sometimes I'll hear a good story and realize that a specific technology can make it real. So the two things support each other. My peers on the movie side of things can fake things with computer-generated effects in movies. I have to make them for real.
From live-action props to interactive theme park attractions, he uses science to create joy. But Smoot says his own story was improbable. Growing up in Brownsville, Brooklyn, with a wealth of ideas and encouragement, but very little means.
When I was quite young, probably 12 years old, I saw a unicycle rider. I said, I want one of those. My parents were poor. I made a unicycle by taking the front wheel off of a tricycle because it had the pedals, banging a pipe onto the top of it, putting a bicycle seat on top of that, and rode that around.
Let me guess, you weren't wearing a helmet either.
I wasn't wearing a helmet, and by the way, those tires are not pneumatic. They're not air-filled, so it was a bumpy ride. And I never wanted to ask my parents for a real unicycle, but one day I came home and it was a unicycle laying up against my bed because my dad said, I saw you clunking along on the street.
He credits his father for that initial spark.
As early as I can remember, he brought home a battery, a bell, a little light bulb. I was probably 5 years old. He gets the light bulb to light and the bell to ring, and that light lit my entire career.
A career that began at Bell Labs, where for 22 years he made strides in fiber optics and broadband systems. But his greatest pride is his most recent invention.
So what do we have here?
This is the hollow tile floor. It is the world's first omnidirectional, multi-person treadmill floor. It can have any number of people on it, so it's like having an infinite walking surface, but in a finite size.
I'm entering the ship's holodeck, where images of reality can be created by...
Inspired by another sci-fi technology.
I reasoned that it won't work unless you have a floor surface that can have everybody on that floor moving in any direction they want. They might be in VR, but how do you solve the floor problem? This is the solution.
So we're going to let you control our chair here.
Okay.
And I got quite the demo.
I'm just going to teach you the controls to our game here.
Okay.
I think he's been practicing. He's really good.
I could do this all day.
Not to mention a little Jedi training. It's all part of why Smoot now joins the National Inventors Hall of Fame.
This gallery of icons is actually a patented wall.
Rini Paiva is their vice president of selection and recognition.
I think one of the really interesting things about this wall is you also see the pace of innovation.
Here at the NIHF Museum in Alexandria, Virginia, the evolution of invention is on display.
A lot of times these names aren't people who are going to be recognizable, but the applications of their inventions are. We want to show the world how important they are. So that's what we do. We're looking for a patent holder. And then what our selection committee will look at is whether that patent has had some sort of significant impact. So economic, cultural, societal.
And for Smoot's colleagues, change and collaboration are linked. So too is embracing the challenge.
Where does competition play a part?
We compete. He's very creative. I'm very creative.
He is Alfredo Ayala, a Disney R&D executive and Smoot's friend.
Lanny Smoot is a Renaissance man. He's a genius.
And our favorite thing to say to each other is, what's not to like? Now, what does that mean? I might build something that's pretty cool, design something, and he'd come over and say, that's really cool, but there's something missing.
And when we say that, and he'll say it to me, and I would say it to him, it's kind of like, you win. It's just what's not to like about it.
Their camaraderie seems to hold more weight than their successes. And to Ayala, that's everything.
He represents many people like me. And that means the world to me.
I work in a company where creative artists are all over the place, and I could say, oh, look at this horrible looking thing that I made that can do magic. What do you think about it, buddy?
Part of Smoot's magic, advice for the next generation.
Get it out of your head into the world. Many people waste time in their lives by saying, oh, I could have done that, or I should have done that. Do it. Being able to do things that other people might have thought is either impossible or difficult, and if it can inspire young kids to do it, is an honor.
For more stories like these and live coverage of breaking news, stream us right here on CBS News 24/7. I'm Michelle Miller. Thank you for watching Eye on America.